Labour Congress, NLC, and its affiliate unions in the education sector have declared a no-pay, no-work policy in response to the federal government's no-work, no-pay stance on the ongoing two-week warning strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU. At a meeting held on Monday, NLC President Joe Ajero said the unions have resolved to act as one body in addressing the persistent issues affecting the education sector. The unions, including ASUU, SSANU, NAAT, ASUP, SSANIP, ASURI, and COESU gave the federal government a 4-week ultimatum to conclude the renegotiations of the 2009 agreement and address other pending issues. Ajero accused the government of repeatedly violating agreements and instigating crises that led to strikes. He emphasized that future negotiations must involve officials with clear mandate and accountability. The era of signing agreements and renegating and threatening unions is over, Ajero replied. It's 4 weeks. If after 4 weeks there is no resolution, the NLC will mobilize all unions nationwide for total action. He also stated that the NLC would launch a national campaign to demand sustainable funding for education, adherence to UNESCO's recommended 25 to 26% budget allocation for the sector, and respect for workers' rights to collective bargaining. According to him, the No Pay, No Work declaration is a direct response to the government's failure to honor its commitment and continuous disregard for fair labor practices. This is the federal government did come to say, no work, no pay. I mean, the Minister of Education said, if you go on strike, you join the body of strike. He called on all the VCs and said, these people are not going to get paid. But now we have the NLC joining in this to say, no pay, no work. Do you think that, we are going to get into this and see an end where everybody is pacified and the required outcomes are made, or we are still going to be talking about this next year where we will likely say for 17 years, ASUU has been making demands that the government hasn't met? Let's talk about it.
Well, it's rather unfortunate that a country such as Nigeria, with the resources we hold such, important aspects or important individuals with such disdain. I'm going to call it disdain because there is no other adjective to describe what it feels like when you take people that traditionally, if any of these people were teaching abroad, then you don't have to go far. Let's say Ghana. They are revered. They are treated with such respect. They are held as scholars are held in the greatest light. They are viewed as the people that pave the way for a brighter future, and they are treated. They are compensated as such. But then we come to Nigeria, and it seems that we are doing them a favor by giving them the bare minimum, which it shouldn't be the case. We give them the bare minimum, and then we expect them to do all this work, and then we don't even pay them the bare minimum that we have agreed to give them. The bare minimum that was agreed upon is not being paid. It's not being enforced. Like he stated, we will finish the negotiation, then you go back and you renege on what we've already agreed upon, which has been going on for such a long time. But ultimately, the people that are suffering it are indeed the students. Remember back to 2020 when there was an 8+ month strike.
Oh, yes. So
many academic calendars where, till today, a lot of institutions are still reeling from the damage that did to the academic calendar. We now have a situation whereby a lot of institutions have people from 2 potential sets clashed in one set specific. Like I personally know a department where there are almost 700 or more than 700 because of the waiting, and then they now admitted a new set and we joined them, and it became a whole thing. Now the class had to be split into 2 for them to act. Now the stress that the lecturers have to go through in order to, you're teaching you first start class of over 300, you're teaching the second class is over 300. That stress is not even accounted for. It's not accounted for. Their normal rates are not even paid. Probably in a society that works, there will be bonuses. but they can't even ask for bonuses because they agreed upon the fixed rates. They are not seeing it, they are not getting it. We have a backlog of months and months and months where people go without pay, and then you pay 1 month, and then you forget about them for a while. And now you're trying to say, oh, no work, no pay. So what happened to the months and months of work that have gone without pay? If you're trying to swap over from, oh, no pay, no work, to no work, no pay, so the work that has been done over the past couple of months, why don't they get compensated for those ones? And then we can now be, okay, we can now talk about the case of, okay, now if you don't work, now that we've settled you, if you actually don't work, like you will choose not to pay.
Right.
There's already a backlog. Pay the backlog, then we can move on. If you want to change the policy, they can sit down around the table and have that discussion. But at the end of the day, the people that are suffering the most are Nigerian students. In the University of Port Harcourt, there are a lot of students that I personally know that are waiting on their defense. But now the school is closed. The strike might continue for an extended period, according to what has been said, the statement put out by the NLC. The strike might continue for a much longer period. So these people are in limbo. Are they in school? Are they out of school? It's an unfortunate.
It's really unfortunate. I want to draw your attention a little bit to other quarters of this matters, which are what I would really like to share with you before we wrap up the show. Do you know that a professor in a university in Nigeria earns between 500,000 naira to 600,000 naira? That is their base. That is their base salary. I mean, that is the honest take home for being a professor in Nigeria. But Governor Umoeno did mention that his PAs earn at least 1 million naira, right? It's made me, whenever I see the confrontation with academia and, lecturers coming up to make out this outcry, I want to ask you, when you look at this base salary that I just mentioned, and it gets lower, for if you're like a senior lecturer, that means it's lower than 500. If you're, an assistant lecturer, and it just keeps going low all the way, right? Now, when you look at this, I was privy to ask a professor I know a few weeks ago, what then is the purpose of academia? But just for the discourse for this show, why do you think eventually ASUU for 16 years, right? Why do you think they've succumbed to the federal government to say, okay, let's go back to the class when these demands from the 2009 agreement, pardon me, please, aren't met? That's on one hand. Why do you think ASUU have succumbed a number of times and went back into the classroom? On the other hand, why do you think the government has refused to meet up with this demand?
It's a rather unfortunate one. Because now, I feel there has been a lot of trust on the part of ASUU displayed towards the government. Because now, the NLC is stating there have been agreements made, but we have these conversations, we have this roundtable discussion, we reach these conclusions. After everything has been agreed upon and signed upon, you go back and tell us, oh, this is not feasible, we are no longer doing this. But at this point, they've already decided, okay, we're going to open up schools and we're going to open up our institutions. Now, I feel at the end of the day, ASUU understands that, or a lot of ASUU staff understand that the people that are losing the most when schools are shut down for such extended periods are students. So in light of that, once they reach some sort of compromise with the government, they're usually keen to, okay, let's move past this, let's open it up while we wait for the government to do the needful.
So why hasn't government met up with that yet?
Okay.
The other angle of the question was, why do you think government hasn't fulfilled this agreement in 16 years? And it's not been one government. In 16 years, we've had at least maybe 3 presidents in a 16 years margin. Why do you think all of these people that have come into power have not met this agreement? Why do you think there has been a refusal to commit to this agreement with ASUU?
Simply put, I'm going to say it in 2 words. I would call it misplaced priorities. Because globally, scholars are viewed as pace setters. They are viewed as these all-knowing beings of knowledge that are pivotal to the growth and development of a society.
Right.
But when we come to Nigeria, it seems that, first of all, by percentage, Nigeria will operate one of the most expensive governments in the world.
Mm-hmm.
In the world, we operate one of the most expensive governments. Why does the president have a convoy of over 100 cars? 50 of those cars can pay off half of the staff that the across Nigerian universities.
Right.
Some of these cars, depending on the level of customizations, maybe bulletproof options and things of that nature, they can go for up to 1 billion naira, 6, 7, 8, 900 million. Then the ones that are more cheaper, they go from 150 to 300 million naira. Those are the ones that are not bulletproof per se. But then we have a convoy, and this convoy thing, it extends to, it goes beyond the president. We have senators that, when senators are moving, the whole road is shut down because of how many cars they're moving with. We do not do enough as government, the government does not do enough to justify what they spend. The government does not do enough to justify what they spend on the cost of governance. This money is going into private pockets. When there was this particular Nigerian senator, when he was in prison for corruption allegations, he got paid the entire time. The entire time he was in prison, he received his salaries and allowances and everything else, and he kept his seat as the senator. Why? Money, like, we always like to make it seem like, it's lack of money. The money is there. That's why ASUU feels so cheated. The money is there. But then, what do we use the money to do?
That's the big question that we will leave on the heart of our viewers. What do we use the money to do?